We are just days away from crossing the finish line of this election, and I thought it would be helpful to give you some tools to reach out to the undecided voters in our lives. Let's try to convince them together, shall we? Hi, everyone. I'm Shauna Presley Vircher, the political fixer. And when I say undecided voters, I actually don't think there's a lot of voters who don't know who they're going to vote for. I think there's a lot of undecided voters that are deciding how much effort they're going to put into voting rather than staying home. And I also think that there's a precious pocket of undecided voters that know that they want to vote for Kamala Harris, but they're not sure that they can face the consequences of that by going against someone in their lives, like their community or their church or their social circle or even a partner. I think those people are worth reaching out to. And as I recently found out, there's apparently a third group of undecided organizations that can't take the time to make up their minds. I'll show you what I mean. The Washington Post got a lot of attention when they decided not to endorse a candidate in this election, or rather, they decided not to publish their already drafted endorsement for Kamala Harris. Well, in all of that media frenzy, you may have missed that the Tampa Bay Times, my paper of record, also decided not to endorse, but their reason was different. According to them, they didn't have the time. This is a direct quote. The Times editorial board discussed where to best apply our time. Then they went on to describe their endorsement process and said, quote, all that research takes time. So I thought I would save the Times some time. And more importantly, I did think it was important to put together a quick rundown of key issues that aren't getting a lot of attention right now, especially when we're all getting bombarded by a lot of information. And a lot of that information is false or misleading. Let's start with climate change. The Biden-Harris administration made the largest investment in history in combating climate change, over $20 billion. They recently also invested an additional $7 billion in FEMA to help combat the impact of climate disasters on communities in the future. Kamala Harris has vowed to continue that work in partnership with the Environmental Protection Agency and to reduce our dependence on fossil fuels by making us a leader in renewable energy. Her opponent has called climate change a hoax and has joked that these recent disasters are good because they create more oceanfront property. He has cited that he is against a number of alternative fuel sources, saying that he is opposed to incentives for electric vehicles, and he's concerned that wind turbines kill whales. He and other MAGA have vowed to dismantle the Environmental Protection Agency. Let's talk about gun safety. Kamala Harris is a gun owner, but she believes in responsible gun ownership. Her views on weapons has largely been shaped by the work she did as a prosecutor, sitting with so many families who had victims of gun violence. She's pushed hard for red flag laws, which means that it's harder for violent offenders to gain access to firearms. She has also pledged that she will help fund local law enforcement safety programs for communities and increase funding and access for mental health care. MAGA has said that they will loosen gun laws further. In fact, they wore pins of assault rifles on their clothing on the floor of Congress within hours of a mass shooting to signal their solidarity in protecting guns over our lives. J.D. Vance just today held a campaign event in a gun store. Her opponent has said that we don't have a problem with guns. We have a, quote, spiritual problem. He has said, quote, there was great pressure on me to do something about guns. We did nothing. We didn't yield. He has vowed to roll back any of the firearm protections and regulations currently in place, quote, my very first week in office, possibly my first day. Seniors, do you like Social Security and Medicare? Because MAGA doesn't. In fact, one of their leading senators, Senator Rick Scott from Florida, put together an entire PowerPoint on how they plan on sunsetting the program. Harris's opponent has vowed to, quote, do a lot of cutting of these programs and has called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. Kamala Harris has vowed to strengthen and protect Social Security and Medicare. She said that the administration would work to ensure that all of those who paid into the benefits received their full coverage, and she has also promised to go after people in the millionaire and billionaire tax brackets who are taking advantage of loopholes because that revenue will help keep the program solvent in the future. Speaking of healthcare, one choice is that we could vote for the woman whose administration worked to lower prescription drugs, such as insulin, to $35 for those on Medicaid and wants to extend those benefits to all Americans. Another choice is to vote for her opponent, who has worked tirelessly to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act. This would mean that healthcare costs would increase across the board, and also that insurance carriers would no longer be required to cover pre existing conditions. When considering your support, would you rather vote for the woman whose administration helped to secure over 105 million doses of the COVID vaccine during the height of the pandemic and believes in science? Or would you rather throw your support behind the man who suggested that we inject bleach during the pandemic and just recently said that he would put RFK Jr. in charge of our healthcare? If you're not familiar with him, Robert doesn't believe in any safe vaccines. When her opponent was specifically asked about the vaccine plan that RFK Jr. has proposed, he said that Jr.'s plan was, quote, great. Yay, measles. The Biden-Harris administration worked with Congress to create the most comprehensive immigration policy in a generation. Kamala Harris has vowed to increase funding for Border Patrol as well as equipment and technology to increase safety and reduce crime at our points of entry. She has also vowed to work with different agencies to create a pathway forward for citizenship for immigrants who are following the rules as well as dreamers. That legislation I mentioned, it never passed because her opponent worked actively to destroy it. He put pressure on his MAGA allies in Congress not to pass that border policy. He has said that he will deport legal citizens, including specifically Haitian Americans, based on a vile rumor having to do with them eating cats and dogs. And most recently, his supporters stated at a rally that he and his campaign sanctioned and loaded into a teleprompter remarks that were so disgusting about immigrants and their families that if I quoted them verbatim here, I would get flagged on this platform. I believe sincerely that we will win and that good will triumph over hate. However, I also believe for the soul of this nation that we need as many people coming forward and casting their vote as possible to send a strong message that that kind of rhetoric and these divisive policies have no longer any place in our political discourse. So please like and share this content so we can reach as many undecided voters as possible before Election Day. And if you feel like it, tag the Tampa Bay Times in your comments below, because maybe with all of us doing the research together, we saved them enough time and they will find the courage to do the right thing and speak up as well. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to bring you insights and intel into this amazing moment in history, and I'll see you all soon.